Hello everybody, this episode is kind of a continuation from the last episode on multicamming, and this one I'm using a little bit of a different situation where I just want to show a couple of the different kind of practical setups you can have with a multicam. This one we've got like a professional climber that was doing a kind of a tough climb, and we did it as a project to shoot 4 different angles of the event. And down here what we've got is we've got Scarlet footage, Epic footage, drone footage, and Blackmagic. I really wanted to show this because we're mixing different cameras in different formats, so I wanted to show kind of multicam when you're using a bunch of different cameras. So one thing about these cameras here is the Epic shoots higher resolution than all these other cameras. These other cameras will shoot up to 4K. The Scarlet will shoot 4K. If we select this and look at one of these clips here, we've got, and actually this is not quite 4K, this is Ultra HD. It's 3840 by 2160. Let's go to the red footage and look at that. And this is 4800 by 2700, so that's nearly 5K there. And we go down to the drone, look at the drone footage. The drone footage is Ultra HD, and the Blackmagic is Ultra HD. So we've got 3 cameras that match resolutions. But one thing I'm a little concerned about is, are the aspect ratios matching? So I'm going to take a quick look at that. I'm going to go under my Epic here, select the footage, and look at the resolution, and that is 4800. So I'm going to go 4800 divided by 2700 to get my aspect ratio. My aspect ratio is 1.78 to 1. If I go to my Scarlet and look at my Scarlet footage and do 3840 divided by 2160, that is 1.78 to 1 as well. So that's a good thing. These aspect ratios match. I'm not going to have to zoom up on one or the other necessarily to match, but yeah, my aspect ratios match. And one thing that I did when I imported my footage into the project here is I made sure under Edit, Preferences in General, I made sure that this default scale to frame size was checkmarked. So when I imported all the footage, it would scale either footage into the timeline that I decide I'm going to be using here. And in this instance, I'm probably just going to be using an Ultra HD timeline and not the 5K timeline. So it will scale the Epic footage down to the right size because I had that checkmarked when I imported the footage. So let's get started here. I already have an edit here, but I'm going to show you how to get that all set up. First thing I want to do, and I did this with all other instances of multicamming, is I'm going to do offline HD footage. And this is a little bit complex, so this episode might be a little bit long, so I know everybody that gripes about me doing long episodes, go watch another episode. What we need to look at here is the nature of this footage before we do presets for these clips. I'm going to grab my Scarlet, I'm going to put it in a new timeline here, and take a look at this. This is a video clip here, and we've got 2 mono tracks. See, they should have just had the audio shut off on this thing, but they didn't. They had, since they weren't using a microphone on the camera, then this has 2 mono channels being recorded. So the nature of this is a video file and 2 mono channels. That is important. You need to remember that because I'm going to make a preset for each one of these cameras. I'm going to delete that, go to my Epic footage, drop that in a timeline, and look at this. And this is actually exactly the same here. I've got a video track with 2 monos. It's just a different resolution. But the nature of this for encoding to proxy is you got to remember that this is a video and 2 mono channels. I'm going to go to the drone footage and look at that. I drop that in, and the drone footage is just a video track, no audio. So I'm going to have to make a custom one for that. And let's look at the last one, the Blackmagic. And my Blackmagic is video and then 1 stereo file. So that's important. You got to know that to get this to match up. Otherwise, if you make these all the proxies and just use one of Premiere's presets, it's going to mess things up. You're going to move to it. If you move to a different computer or open it up later, it'll say it can't find. It'll say that the proxy footage does not match the nature of these video clips that you have in here. All right, so I'm going to go to Media Encoder here. I've opened up Media Encoder, and I'm going to generate some presets for each one of these clips. Now the Epic and the Scarlet can use the exact same preset because those ones shared the same kind of nature of file. So what I'm going to do is I always like to use the GoPro Cineform QuickTime, even on a PC or Mac. If you're on a PC, you got to have QuickTime installed. I know there's all that weird stuff with QuickTime right now that they've stopped supporting it, but still you can use QuickTime on your PC. You can install it, or you can just use another. You can use an H.264 would work just fine, or you can use another format. The issue with H.264 is it doesn't do 2 mono tracks. It doesn't really match up with the red footage. So that's why I use the QuickTime. The QuickTime codec is way more versatile than the H.264 in changing nature with audio and other things. So I'm going to go down to presets and find this the GoPro Cineform, this QuickTime file here. I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to say create encoding preset. Now you're going to have to create an encoding preset and then create an ingest preset. And I'm going to go to create encoding preset. We are going to have to create an encoding preset, and then we're going to have to create an ingest preset. So right click and say create encoding preset, and it's going to bring up this window. And it's going to say, okay, you're making a new preset here. So I'm going to call this one, I'm going to name all these ones Climb so I know what project this is for. So this is Epic Scarlet Climb. This is QuickTime here. I'm going to go down and under this basic video settings here, I'm going to uncheck my resolution, uncheck my frame rate, uncheck my aspect ratio, make sure all these things match. I'm going to change first of all, my aspect ratio. This default is DV, so it's kind of an ancient one, but this is a very smooth codec. It works really, really well. I'm going to pull this down and say I'm using square pixels. I'm going to pull the frame rate down and match my frame rate, which is 23.976. Make sure your frame rate matches. And I'm going to make this stuff 1280 by 720, which is also an aspect ratio of 1.78 to 1. So bring my resolution down to 1280 by 720. And if this isn't conforming here, you can just uncheck that little chain there, and there we go. So my resolution matches with the aspect ratio. My pixel aspect ratio is at 1.0, and my frame rate 23.976. So now we got to work on the audio for this. So I'm going to go to audio here, and then this is using a stereo channel. This is where a lot of people run into issues. If you're using red footage, it shoots those two mono files, and some cameras like the Sony cameras will shoot up to like 4 channels of audio. So you got to be careful to make sure that you match those things. So since this is stereo here, I'm going to change this here to mono, and I'm going to add, you have to kind of scroll down here and you'll see a little plus button here, and I'm going to add one more mono channel. So now I've got 2 mono channels matching my 2 mono channels on the red. So now that is my red Scarlet Climb. I'm going to do the same here. Hit OK. I'm going to right click and do 2 more presets here. Create an encoding preset. This one I'm going to call Black Magic Climb for the Climb project. I'm going to go into video, do the same thing here. I'm going to uncheck frame rate, and there we go. And I'm going to go square pixels, 23.976, and make this one 1280 by 720. And if I go under audio, notice it is stereo, and that matches the stereo matches the nature of my Blackmagic. And as I hit OK, they're putting them in here. I forgot to do one thing on these things here that I really like to do. I'm going to right click on this and go to preset settings. I'm going to go to effects, and I'm going to add a timecode overlay so I can tell that I am actually using my proxy footage. So I'm going to check mark that, and I like it in the bottom right hand corner, and hit OK. I'm going to do that to my red footage as well. Go under preset settings, scroll down to effects, timecode overlay, bottom right. All right, and one thing I can do to save a little bit of time, instead of going back down to this one, and I should have done this last time, I'm going to use one of these ones that I've already created to create a new preset, so I don't have to keep making all those changes. I'm going to right-click on my Blackmagic here, and I'm going to say Create Encoding Preset, and it's going to create a new one based off of the Blackmagic here. I'm going to go under New Preset, call it Drone Climb. Now when I go into my video tab, notice it's got all these things already set, so now I don't have to do that again. And if I go under Effects, and scroll down, it's got the timecode overlaid, so I don't have to do that again. But this one is going to be customized. Remember, the drone had no audio, so all I have to do is uncheck Export Audio, and now there's no audio. And I'm going to hit OK. And now I've got my 3 settings here, my Epic and Scarlet, my drone, and my Blackmagic settings to generate my ingest settings here. So now the next step is to right-click on each one of these. I'm going to right-click and say Create Ingest Preset. I'm going to go down here and make sure that my format is under QuickTime, so it brings up all my QuickTime presets. I'm going to pull this down and say, let's do my Blackmagic one. I'm going to rename these here. And I'm going to add the name Ingest on each one of these, so I know it's specifically an ingest setting for proxy, not just an encoding preset, but this is an actual ingest preset here as well that we're going to be using for doing proxy. I'm going to hit my destination, hit browse for location, and I'm going to make a folder for my proxy. Select that, and make that my location there. But yeah, so this is going to transcode to this destination, format QuickTime, and the Blackmagic preset. I'm going to hit OK. And there's my ingest setting right there. I'm going to do the same to these two. Create ingest. Select my drone climb and change this up here to drone climb ingest. Make sure it's got that same location. Hit OK. And one more time for the red footage. Create ingest preset. Epic Scarlet Climb ingest. Make sure I choose the Epic Scarlet Climb encode preset and that location and hit OK. So now I've got 3 of those for this project. So now I'm going to right click on each one and tell it to export these presettings. I wish there was an easier way for this right now, but this is kind of the process. But once you're set up, it really facilitates things and makes things really easy. So I'm going to right click on this and say export presets. And I'm going to go to my proxy folder. I'm just going to save everyone under my proxy folder, so that's where all my proxy stuff is. I'm going to right click on this one, do the same thing. And you can see there's the last one that I saved there, and do it to all 3 of these. Okay, now that all 3 of those are finished, I'm going to go back to Premiere. I'm going to open up my Scarlet footage here. I'm going to select all my Scarlet footage. I'm going to right click, and we're going to go to Proxy, and I'm going to create proxies. It'll open this window and say, well, what sort of presets do I want to use? I'm going to use QuickTime, but I'm just going to go to Add Ingest Preset here. I'm going to go to my Proxy folder, and I'm going to use the red preset that I created, my ingest preset. Hit open, make sure that it's going to that location. It's going to my proxy location, select that folder, so it's going to be saving those in that proxy location folder there, and I'm going to hit OK. All right, this will add it to Media Encoder, and we'll start encoding these things to proxy footage. And you'll notice it's got that little timecode window running down there. It's added that, it's burning that onto my footage here. So while that's going there, I'm going to go back and I'm going to do that to each one of my clips here. I'm going to go to my Epic footage, grab all that, right click, and say create proxies. I'm going to use the same ingest preset, same location, hit OK, and it has added that footage to Media Encoder as well. Let's go to the drone footage, select that, right click, create proxies, and now I'm going to choose a different ingest setting here. I haven't added it to Premiere yet, so I'm going to add ingest, and I'm going to select my drone climb, same location there, hit OK. Back to my Blackmagic, select all my footage there, right click, proxy, create proxies, go to my ingest presets, add ingest presets, and grab my Blackmagic, add that, make sure my browse location is exactly the same, hit OK, and all my footage has been added to Media Encoder. Let's go to Media Encoder. I've got all my footage added here. It's creating the proxies, so I'm going to let this happen, and then once it's created all those proxies, I'm going to come back to Premiere, and we'll start the multicam setup and edit. Okay, I'm back now, and all this footage has finished encoding to proxy, so let's get to the multicamming. I'm going to close this window here and go back to Premiere. And open my source window here. I'm going to go up to my little plus button here, and I'm going to grab my proxy switch to my source monitor, and I'm actually going to add it to my program monitor here as well. So now I can do a quick switch between those two. So let's go look at one of the clips here. I'm just going to double click on any one of these clips here, load it into the source monitor, and if I go up and hit this toggle proxy, it should bring up a timecode burn right there, because now it is accessing the proxy footage and not the high quality footage. So now I can edit and edit quickly. So once again, it just changes back and forth. So there's your proxy footage, your low quality footage, and there is your 4K original footage. And that should be on any of the shots that I go to and double click on. You should notice if you toggle between it on and off here, you're going to see that little timecode window come up because I burned it on there. Otherwise, if you didn't do any sort of watermark or timecode burn, then you're not. Then it's kind of tough to tell if you have proxy, because if you haven't encoded proxies and you do this, it's just going to ignore it. Like it's just going to bring that blue up, and you won't know that it's not actually referencing any proxy footage, and your system's going to be slow. All right, so to set this up, let's. I know I'm going to want to edit in 4K here, in Ultra HD actually. So I'm going to grab one of my Ultra HD files. Let's grab our Blackmagic one. These are Ultra. I know these are Ultra HD. I'm going to grab this and drag it down to my new item icon and create a sequence. The sequence is now inside of my Blackmagic folder. I'm going to drag that to the left and let go, so it's out of that folder now. And I'm going to call this. I'm going to hit enter and call this multicam final or something like that, so I know this is what I'm actually editing out of right there. I can delete that clip out of that timeline there, and I've got my timeline created. Okay, so the next step is going to be finding a match point for all these cameras. Now we did do kind of a little makeshift marker here where this guy clapped his hands. One camera, the issue here is one camera, even though they said they had him in frame, they did not have him in frame. He clapped out of the camera, and the drone wasn't even turned on until after the clap. So the fault of the camera operators there. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go under my Scarlet here and find my take one, and we're going to try to find sync markers here, but we're going to fix the drone part. Here I can probably get by because he reaches up his hands here. Let's turn this to proxy so it moves quicker. Now I can go full quality on these. He does take one, reaches up and claps. I can kind of tell where his hands come together because boom, right there his arms are together, and there's the vibration from his shirt. So right there I'm going to put a marker. I can kind of guess on that one and get it. The drone I'm not going to be able to. So we're going to show how to fix that if you don't have an actual marker. So I'm going to go to my Epic here, double click on my Epic, and find the same sync marker here. And here's where he claps right there. put a marker right there, hit M for marker, and I've got a marker right there. Let's go to, I know that my Blackmagic has a visual on that, so I'm going to go to take one, load that clip in here, and let's find that same marker here. And here's his clap right there. Hit M for marker, and let's go to the drone and look at that one. And notice that the drone started after she started to climb, so we didn't get that marker on there. He started recording like after she started to climb. So what I'm going to do right now is I'll show you a little trick with the multi-camera sequences. I'm going to go into my Blackmagic, and actually, let's do this. I'm going to right-click on this clip here, and we're going to go under Label and label that as, let's say, Forest. Let's go under our Epic Take One, label that as Forest. Go under Blackmagic, label that one as Forest. So they're all the same color. Now those are the only ones that are labeled that green forest color and that little label right there. So I can right click on this one and go under Label and say Select Label Group. It'll select everything that's labeled that color, and I can right click and say Create Multi-Camera Source Sequence. I'm going to arrange these by clip marker. I can rename this up here if I want to. I'm just going to leave it the same right now. By the unnamed marker, I make sure you only have one marker on those clips. So if you don't, you have to right click on them and clear the markers. I'm going to uncheck. Make sure this is unchecked. Move source clips to process bin. Some people like that. I don't like it. And it's going to use the audio from the camera from camera one. I don't really need the audio for this because we're just doing a visual edit. There we go. So I'm going to hit OK. It'll create this multi-camera sequence right there. But the only thing that I'm missing is the drone, and I'm going to use this the timeline visual to basically match that drone up. And the way you do that is you right-click on this multicam here. There's a lot of people don't know about this. Is a very helpful feature with the multicam. And I'm going to say Open in Timeline. It'll open this up and it'll show everything that's synced in here, and we can actually do some things to kind of speed this up a little bit. I don't really need the audio from the red cameras, so I'm just going to hold down Option and drag across the audio, hit delete, and get rid of that. I'm going to hold down Option. Notice how it muted all the ones below here. I'm going to arrow Option and arrow this up, and it will be playing this audio here now for my multicams. And look, these are all matched up by those markers right there. Notice that they started recording at different times, but we got that sync marker on all these. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to find the drone. Move down, and we're going to get drone take one. I'm going to drag it and drop it in here. Just kind of move it up there right now, out of the way. But what I want to do is find a visual. I want to find a wide visual here. So I can kind of move my drone to the side there. I'm going to mute this just for a sec so it's not playing back. I'm going to find a visual where I can match my drone here. So what I'm going to do, let's grab the drone, bring it in here, and kind of look at the footage here and find some matching point that we can use. And maybe we can use this right here where she's already on the rock kind of in a squat position there, and she reaches up and grabs onto a rock. So right there, let's tilt it up to this so you can really see this. So right here, I'm going to try to use this as a visual for match. Right there, she puts her hand on the rock. I'm going to use that as the matching visual. And let's see if we can find an example of that in one of these other clips. So I'm just going to trim that so I have that very first frame right there. I know that's where she grabs onto that rock. We can move that out of the way now. Let's see if we can find that same shot here. And the Epic was a wide shot. I'm going to trim this one. I'm going to trim this one back as well, just so we can see what we're doing. And see if we can find kind of that same squatting position. Okay, and right here is that moment where she's kind of in that squat position. She puts her foot up, and that's the exact same one right there. So her hand reaches up, touches the rock, and right there is a sync, is where I can drag this drone in to get that to sync up right there. Now I can grab this and back time it. So I have the full extent of the footage, grab my Blackmagic and bring it back as well. So I have the full extent of the footage. There we go. So everything's in there now. And actually I could have just clicked this on the eyeball instead and turned that off, but turn off the mute. And now we have our multicam sequence with that drone added to it and synced up. So let's go to our, let's go back to our regular multicam sequence. I'm going to close the timeline version of it, and grab this multicam and drag and drop it into my timeline here, my new timeline. I'm gonna tell it to keep the existing settings. I have it all set up the way I wanted it, so I'm gonna say keep existing settings. This does have audio on it as I play back. We're gonna hear the drone, we're gonna hear everybody yelling. We're gonna hear the drone going. This was kind of intended not to have sound, so I'm just gonna either mute the sound or just kill the sound, or just delete that sound altogether. So now we're set up. We got our timecode window. We've got everything synced up, and I think we're ready to go. So we're on our proxy window right here. I've got my proxies. Notice it does timecode on or off. But now we're going to go up to our little wrench here and tell it to show our multi-camera view. Here's our multi-camera view. Let's move in a little bit here. So we've got all of our cameras. There's all of our cameras. Everything is synced up. She's moving in sync here. Let's tilde over this window and kind of play through this and take a look. Everything playing in sync, and if you need a little extra speed, you can actually click this and tell it to show 1/4 of the quality, and that will help as well. All right, so now we can start doing our multicam. Let's get to the very beginning here. Make this window a little bit bigger. You can tilt it over the window and make it full screen like I was showing, but I want to show what's kind of happening down here at the bottom. Let's get to where she actually gets on the rock here after the sync marker. And I'm going to hit Q and delete all the footage beforehand. So right here she starts climbing. So now if we want to, we can start on the wide shot. So I've got this paused. I'm going to click this and say I want to change this whole angle to the wide shot as she starts to get onto the wall here. Then as she starts to climb, we can start cutting where we want to and cut to the close-up here, or cut to the closer shot here, cut back to the wide shot. Oops, we got a little zoom there, so let's change this one here. Notice as we start clicking this, it is doing the editing for us. I'm going to change this one to the drone. Click on the drone there. Now we got that drone shot. Let's see how that looks. So I paused and clicked on the drone shot to change it to the drone shot. You'll notice here it's going to cut to that drone shot right there. Looks good. Cut back to this shot. Now I can just sit here and do all this cutting live. And now we can continue the full multicam process. Press play, and now we can cut to our various shots and do our full multicam. So this episode was really about using different formats and doing different encodes to get a multi-camera sequence set up. If you want to, go back and watch my previous episode, and I've got that one really gets into more details of how to fix your multicam, how to do fine-tune adjustments, and gets a little bit deeper into it. But this episode is really about the setup that goes into that, into doing a multi-camera sequence with a couple different issues that may arise. If you don't have a sync marker on one of the cameras, or one of the sync markers was out of the shot. In this instance, I had two of them and kind of had to come up with a solution to fix them to get this going. So thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please let me know. Post them. Thank you.